Hey everyone, it's been a while since I've posted a video, so I figured I'd go ahead and make a little update to the channel really quick. In case you didn't hear from some of my previous videos, the reason why I have not been around for a bit is because I'm in the process of moving. Well, not quite yet, but we're putting up our home for sale, and because of that, my setup, which I normally film on, is, well, it's gone. It's not here anymore. My PCBs for my arcade stuff are in storage, and everything else has been sold or whatever, basically. So my train of thought here is to go a slightly different route. I will be keeping most, if not all, of my PCBs. Um, I mean, I love them. They're great. That being said, I think instead of continuing with my collection outside of maybe some more Namco boards like Soul Edge or Soul Calibur or maybe even like Bloody Roar, I think going for more 2D based games is probably not the direction I want to go. Long story short, I wanted to go ahead and get a candy cabinet and just pay this no mind. I just wanted you guys to be able to look at something really quick. I started looking into buying a candy cabinet to go along with my Galaxian 1979 arcade cabinet. And so old Sega candy cabinets, for example, have a lot of issues where they have major issues with the screen, the monitors, and major issues with the power supplies. Now, I just recapped my Galaxian. Again, I haven't done a video about it because as soon as I recapped it, I put it in storage. However, once we move, I do plan on obviously showing that thing off. I did that all in one day. I'm really proud. I've never soldered before in my life and taught myself how, had some help with some local guys as part of the Claw forums who basically showed me how to solder and then left me to my own devices for the rest of the day. I did the rest of it literally by myself and then had some help making sure that everything was put together properly. But the colors of the monitor now are perfect. Like the blacks are black, the colorfuls really pop, the colors really pop. There's no distortion. It was all due to bad capacitors. So if you have anything like that with your arcade monitor, by the way, that's probably what's going on. Don't throw away your tubes. Don't, replace them with an LCD because you don't think that they're fixable or you don't know how. If I can learn, anyone can learn. It really, really is not that bad. Make sure that you are obviously safe and you research how to go ahead and deal with the back of CRT so you don't kill yourself. But past that, the actual soldering of capacitors really wasn't that bad. It's just time consuming, but it's actually kind of therapeutic. I do recommend it in a weird way. And considering I barely paid any money for that Galaxian, I mean, it's a hell of a deal. I mean, a capacitor kit was hardly anything like price-wise, so it was well worth it. I apologize for the potentially shaky cam here. I've packed everything. We're literally like a week and a half, 2 weeks away from us in the house, so like everything's gone. I don't even have my cell phone stand, so I do apologize. But anyway, so I started looking into that, and while I can do repairs, the problem with the Sega model, not Model 2, sorry, the problem with the Sega Blast City cabinets, for example, are the fact that it's not just the fact that they have the monitor problems and power supply problems. It's the fact that for whatever reason, they seem to pop up pretty often. There's a joke on the forums that I've seen quite a bit, which is if you own like a Blast City or a Neo City or whatever cabinet, that it seems to break itself between plays. And if you leave it alone for like more than a week or two, something will break. Now, I'm sure it's not as bad as that, but at the same time, I just want something that I can play. And I want something that's full size and I want something that can accept my boards. And it's a bit of a hassle. But I still was pushing towards that. I have the money lined up for it. I was honestly ready to go. And then there's another problem, is that unlike all the PCB boards that I've been collecting, for whatever reason, and even unlike other arcade cabinets like the Galaxian I bought or other ones like it, or like even like a Neo Geo cabinet or whatever, for whatever reason, scams seem to center around candy cabs. I don't know if it's just because of the desirability of it all, but like there's a huge problem with most of those sales ending up being scams. And these are not cheap machines. You're talking like $2-3 grand, and that's not, including shipping. And $2,000 range is like nothing's been done to the cabinet sort of thing. So you're going to have to do heavy repairs and maintenance to the monitor and power supply, most likely. $3 grand is maybe cosmetic things have been done, but like, again, still service history is iffy. And a lot of times these will come with panels like the Sega Bass Fishing panel, for example, which are largely useless unless you're playing that one specific game on your Naomi. And the problem with that, I mean, it's not a hugely expensive thing, but again, it's more of a cost. You have to go buy a spare panel with joysticks and buttons, and it just starts racking up. But I've seen nothing but horror story after horror story after horror story of people getting these purchases done through people with forums, no less. Like, you would think that it's a community and everything, and these people get screwed out of everything. And they're not covered, or they are covered, but then it takes ages to prove it, and it's this whole nightmare. And there's some people who, like, there's tracking number scams where they get them shipped, because frankly speaking, unless you find someone like up the road, which is highly unlikely, at least here in Arizona, I'd have to go to at least California to find one locally. More than likely you're gonna have to get it shipped. And if there's a scam in the world that's existed when it comes to purchases, it seems like it's happened several times over when it comes to candy cabinets. And again, I've seen this echoed on Claw forums over and over. I don't know why. I'm assuming it's just a desirability, but more so than like any other type of cabinet, candy cabs seem to be surrounded by scams, and I just didn't want to deal with it. There's a company called Unico, which I'm sure you might have heard about if you're into this sort of shit. And the first product that I was aware of, I should at least say, that they made, I was not personally a customer for. So you're talking, it was an MVS, cabinet clone called an MVSX. And it's literally, it's not even basically, it's literally just an arcade one-up, but with like Neo Geo games. Now, from like a value perspective, I guess you could go ahead and say it's a decent value because you're getting like 50 games, whereas the arcade one-ups are fucking junk, and they give you like 1 to 5 games or whatever on it. I mean, it's such a huge waste of money, and they're made of IKEA plywood, and they're I've seen like 2 6-year-olds side by side trying to play an arcade one-up, and they're touching shoulders. Like, this thing is so comically small, because even with a riser, it's too short, number one, and width-wise, it's not going to ever fix the width problem. And I've seen some people try to recommend these things because, in their credit, the screen's a good quality. The controls are, kind of better than an arcade one-up, but they're easily replaceable, so you can, put, like, good Sanwa shit in there, but it doesn't come with that. But the rest of the cab seems to be a slightly higher quality than an arcade one-up. But again, you're dealing with a lot of problems. And then I've seen some people who are like, oh, well, all you gotta do is like go ahead and get like a hack, I think it's called a Hyo Hack on a USB. And I've seen people try to really push this route. And there's some initial problems, like the USB that's on the back of this unit, I don't know if I have a rear view of this. Oh, right here. The USB that's on the rear, oh my God. There we go. Of this unit, see on the bottom right, is literally just like a single USB hub connected with a USB cable to an internal USB port on the motherboard itself that's inside, which is like built into the monitor. And the cable that they used is like a really shit cable, speed-wise. So if you try to plug in like a thumb drive from the outside, it's not fast enough. It'll end up failing boot most of the time. The obvious way around it is either to plug in a thumb drive on the inside or to go ahead and just get yourself a nicer, higher grade, USB extension cable, which is not expensive. I mean, you're talking like $10. And then it works, to be fair. But then even then, it doesn't work the way I want it. The biggest flaw that I can go into that is that, number one, you're still relying on the power, and I put that in giant air quotes, of this motherboard that's inside, which is basically of the same power as most arcade 1-ups, if not the same exact board. I don't know, but I mean, it seems awfully similar capability-wise. So you're only going to be able to play games past a certain era. So like Neo Geo, CPS2, it is like your limit. As soon as you get into higher powered stuff like Naomi or any type of 3D processing, I mean, you're on shaky ground. Now, it can play, I think, PS1 games or some of them, but I mean, like, it's a jank experience. And more importantly, and this is the biggest flaw for me, besides everything else I just named that's shredding this thing apart, the biggest flaw that I have with it is the fact that it doesn't like have the ability to play the games in a way that will make me satisfied. And what I mean by that is like there's no access to dip switch settings. There's no access to any type of option. And I'm not saying like I'm a big pussy when it comes to playing my games or anything here. And I understand that you can just keep chucking quarters in, but there are many games, in particular certain shooters, for example, on Neo Geo, where once you get past a certain level, when you die, it restarts you to the beginning of the level. So if you're playing on the default difficulty, which can be very hard, especially on the last level, you're not going to get very far. And then when you die and you go through a couple lives and you get scored back to the beginning level, you have no chance of beating this game. At least not for me. I see myself as a pretty decent player. I'm not like some sort of professional or whatever, but like you see my gameplay, I'm not bad. I love my fighting games, I love my shooters. And all I can say is like not having dip switch settings is that's like the last straw for me when it comes to this hack that's being pushed. So this product for me, especially for the price of $500, is just ridiculous. It's not what I'm looking for. Anyway, so the guys at Unico, apparently, like the sales were decent. Don't get me wrong. I think it actually did pretty well by comparison to like what Arcade 1-Up is doing right now. But like, they did have a kind of like a come to Jesus moment, and they basically sat down, asked themselves like, what are people actually wanting? And they actually took the feedback that Arcade 1-Up seems to completely 100% ignore, and said, okay, well, what do people want? They want something that's full size. Okay, fine. They want controls that don't suck ass, and they want Sama parts. Okay, fine. They want to be able to hook up their own hardware instead of this emulation shit on a thumb drive crap, which, at least give them some credit. At least they allowed you to hack the thing with a USB port so easily, unlike Arcade 1-Up stuff. But like, I mean, it's not ideal. It's still like a Raspberry Pi emulating like old games, right? It's not great. The speakers are kind of shit. They noted that. And then the general just like construction, like the IKEA, the Arcade 1-Up IKEA wood that these things are made of. Like, the bar top version of this ain't bad, but as soon as you start dealing with this cabinet, this riser that goes underneath it, it's quite literally like 6 pieces of plywood held together by like wood pegs. I mean, the thing is super light and super unstable. I've seen actually people put like patio steps, like concrete patio decorative steps stacked inside to give it weight, because when they try playing this thing, it's so freaking top heavy that there's no weight on the bottom to keep it from wobbling. So they took all this stuff into consideration and basically came out with Nova Blast. There's 2 different versions of this. I don't know why they keep pushing the one version that I hate, but you know, whatever. There's 2 versions of this. You get this one and you get this one. I went ahead and pre-ordered this one. I feel like this looks more like your typical Sega Blast City sort of cabinet. I don't like these squared speakers. I'm not sure what kind of aesthetic they're going for there, but this looks a lot better. So much like the Taito mini arcade thing that looks like the little Neo Geo mini, the screen rotates, so you'll be able to play in horizontal or Taito mode, which is great. It doesn't have like the pivot mechanism. I think you just basically unscrew it and then rescrew it back in, but hey, you know what? It's better than what I had before, which was I only had a horizontal only setup, so that's kind of nice. The cabinet is technically bar top with a riser. However, it all bolts together and it's made of metal. Like actual, like good quality arcade, you know, cabinet sort of, you know, metal, just like the Blast City. It's also a full-size cabinet. There's no weird scaling. There's no anything going on that makes it look like a one-up cabinet. This is the exact same sort of size that you would get from a real Sega one. And then on top of that, you have actual Sanwa controls, which is great. Just to give you an idea, this thing allows you to see both versions. This is the crappy version. This is the good version. There's literally no difference in specs other than just the top banner and speakers. I think this is a lot better looking. Anyway, and then more importantly, instead of just pre-packaging this thing with a bunch of crappy games that are running on shitty emulation or allow you to hack it, you know, and run things on a Raspberry Pi, this comes with nothing. Nothing at all. There's no games. What it does come with is a JAMA Edge connection, and it's a custom JAMA Edge connection. I've been in contact with the people in the customer service after I pre-ordered this thing, and literally it will have a sort of built-in kick harness system that supports basically pretty much everything from CPS2 to Capcom to Namco. It should support everything. It's not exactly a kick harness, it's something built in. They plan on showing that off later, but apparently it works. And I have seen this thing play CPS2 at least once before, so at least I know that it does that much. And yeah, so the only downside that I see to this, frankly, is the fact that it's not a CRT. The plus side is the fact that it's, you know, everything else that I'm looking for. You have a full-size metal, not a piece of shit. It actually comes with the stools, by the way. Has wheels and legs. The cabinet is not just like some crappy riser cabinet. By the way, just like the MVS, you actually have a working coin insert, coin door, and in the inside it provides storage for your PCB boards, your JAMA boards. The JAMA cable can either be up in here in the top half, where you can put a JAMA board up in here, or there's a hole that where these two connect, that you can feed the JAMA edge down to the bottom cabinet and plug in your stuff down here. It's pretty well designed, I won't lie. You have a volume knob here for your sound, your speakers, 2 full Sanwa control sets, got 8 buttons on, you know, each controller, blah, 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 blah. It's basically everything I want. So I can take my Naomi 2, my CPS 2, my Namco boards, my Neo Geo MVS, and plug them all into this thing, no problem. So that's kind of where I'm going. When I say I don't want to collect other boards per se anymore, the idea past that is to get the Mars FPGA when it comes out in April, I believe, is when it's coming out. So this is similar to the Mr. project, except it's a heck of a lot more powerful. All the people making cores for this are people who made cores for the Mr., and so they're porting over what's already made and then continuing with cores that didn't work because of lack of horsepower. This little expansion bay you see right here is a JAMA edge. So this will plug straight in to this and be able to play no problems right out of the box. In fact, unlike the Mr., there's nothing to build, there's no accessories you have to buy, there's no nothing. These little compartments here, kind of like a Polymega, come off, and you can replace these with tons of other connections for controllers if you want a different type of controller, or you can just connect via USB, which this also supports USB connection to those controls, which again makes this super versatile. It's not just some hard connection with JAMA only. You can plug in HDMI devices, you can plug in, I think they're going to have RGB and VGA plus JAMA. So you can basically plug in all sorts of crap into this. So I think between this, my real boards, I'll basically be able to play anything and everything that I could possibly ever want to play. For anything else that's like a little bit more niche, like Daytona USA 2 or any of the other supermodel sort of Model 3, you know, emulated things, I just run on my PC. But I mean, the amount of those type of games that I'll be playing that need an excessive amount of horsepower by comparison to this to run, I don't mind playing on my PC. And it's not like this thing is going to have like some sort of wheels setup anyway, so I don't really feel like it's really made for a racing setup to begin with, and frankly I don't want it to be, because it's clearly meant for fighters, shooters, and beat 'em ups, which is the 3 type of genres I like most. So that's the plan. I'm sorry if I ranted on a little bit too long, but that's where I'm going. That's the direction. So obviously recording will be a little easier because I'll be recording an LCD screen instead of CRT. I do plan on kind of improving the setup in general going forward. But yeah, so can't wait to show you guys the new Galaxian pickup and the fixes that I did with that coming up here in the next couple months or so. And I can't wait to get this thing in April and start showing it off and then diving into the world of Mars. So I feel like the channel has a nice trajectory to go forward. I don't feel like it's just me buying $300 to $400 PCBs and playing them for 5 minutes and and then that's it. Well, at least to you guys, I'm playing them, but like, you know, as far as showing them off for content, I think this will kind of really open up my ability to show off all sorts of fun stuff and show you a project I plan on showing this thing being built and set up and showing off all the honest highs and lows of the hardware and kind of going through the growing pains, which I'm sure this will have some in the beginning process of getting it fully working with everything. And yeah, so hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Feel free to comment below and like the video. Again, sorry it's been so long, but I hope you guys appreciate this. To the new subs that I've gained while doing nothing, I appreciate it. Hopefully this gives you some confidence that this is not some sort of dead channel. Trust me, it's not. I'm just I'm just trying to get out of here. So, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.